Hey, it's Alan here.
And Bre. And
And
we
we
are
are
the hunter and the hippie.
Connected through yoga and bonded by our love of the wild places and the love for outdoors, we've come together to share our conversations about life.
Well, maybe more so what we've learned or are continuing to learn about life.
And there's no one way to do it. Life, that is.
And hopefully provide you with some teeny tiny bits of inspiration to connect deeper with yourself, others, and our great Mother Earth.
All right. Enough already about the podcast. Let's just get to the podcast. Hey everyone, Alan and Bre here. You're tuning in to a two-part episode. And in this two-part episode, we're talking about a lot of things that are going on in the world. So a few things to remember. We want to make sure we get you started off right on this. A few things to remember, right? We're conversing from our perspective, as always, right? This is our perspective. That's it. There's no big T truth here, other than what we've experienced in our lives, and it's respectful conversation. We are hoping to hear respectful dialogue back as well. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us as you get into this. Some of the stuff that we talk about might be triggering, and that's cool, right? Like, let it be triggering. And I'm going to give you your journal prompt here at the beginning of this episode, so you can grab your journal and have it during the episode, during both episodes, right? The two parts. So you can write your thoughts, your feelings, whether you agree or disagree, and both are totally acceptable. And then there's also the, I don't know where the fuck I stand on a lot of this shit. Maybe you're just trying to survive. You're just trying to get by. So with that, enjoy. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us, both of us. All of our contact info is in the show notes. As well, you can find us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, all the goodies. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Bre to get us started with some breath work. And then we're just going to dive right into the conversation.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Alan. Yeah, I think just also touching on what Alan said, if you have those trigger moments, right, instead of holding it in, locking it in, like, feel it and write it down, right? The more that we trap things in our body or have resistance to whatever is, we need to kind of clear that stuff out. So use the journal as a resource, use your breath as a resource. So today we'll actually start with just kind of shaking things loose in the body. You can keep your eyes closed, you can open to a soft gaze, and then I'll invite you to just start shaking your wrists. So letting them be loose and shaking the wrists, and maybe letting that shaking go out to the arms. And if you can, maybe you kind of shake the legs. Nice. And if you can, from here, start to kind of hit your legs. So just tapping your legs, traveling up and down, and then up through your belly and your torso, maybe hitting your chest, your back. Let's hit the arms, just tapping. And then releasing the arms by the side. If you have any medical reasons that you can't have pressure in the head, just breathe normally for this. So high blood pressure, glaucoma, anything like that, just breathe normally. Otherwise, take a deep inhale and tense the whole body. So breathing in, make fists with the hands, tense the legs, squeeze the buttocks, draw the belly in, feel tension in the whole body, squeeze, and then release and exhale. And let's do that again. So as you breathe in, tense the entire body. This time you might even scrunch the face, flexing the feet, squeezing fists, belly in tight. Feel the sensation of this tension in your body. Feel it building. And then as you breathe out, release. Let's do that one more time. Deep inhale, tense the entire body, maybe so much that it shakes. Squeeze all the tension. Squeeze. And then let go. And now let go even more. And just feel the flood of energy in your whole body. Feel the impact of this release. Feel the impact of no longer holding. Just give yourself to the experience of letting go. Of just being where you are right now. Where you are right now, whether you like it or dislike it, just being with it and feeling it fully. And breathing with it fully. Knowing that wherever you're at, however that changes, that you can always come back to your breath. And then gently drawing your chin towards your chest in a bow of gratitude for yourself. And when you feel ready, slowly fluttering your eyes open.
I just wish more people, right, especially Americans, right, like, you know what? I mean, I wish other countries had. You look at Australia, what's going on there right now, and I don't know if you don't watch the news.
I've
but
heard.
I don't know if you've seen what's going, and I see the news, like I see what's happening there in the news, and I'm like, that can't be real. And I've reached out to friends, and I'm like, and they're like, no, it's real, and I'm like, there'd be a fucking straight revolution here if they tried that shit. Like, I mean, straight on revolt, people getting the shit beat out of them for not wearing a mask, being outdoors. I mean, the government's controlling how much alcohol they're consuming. It is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason, like, I stand by the Second Amendment, and, you know, and it's second for a reason. Mm-hmm. Right? The First Amendment of the Constitution is your right to free speech, religion, right?
And when that gets taken away,
you have your second. That's it, right? Like, you start fucking with my speech, you start fucking with my religion, and guess what? Number 2 kicks in.
Yeah.
And I hope I never need it. Like, that's the thing. Like, you might think like I'm talking like a tough talk. No, I'm not. I'm not trying to be tough. I'm not trying to be a tough guy, right? Like, that's not it at all. Mm-mm. Right? That is the foundations of our country.
And why? Right? And what was that founded on? Our country, right? Was king, like they
wanted freedom. It was taxation, and it was taxation. It was a lot of taxation, honestly, from the king and the queen.
From government, a corrupt government.
Right, 100%.
So they knew what can happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were smart. They didn't, right? They knew what, they knew the advancement of technologies. People say, oh, the Constitution should be rewritten because it didn't account for ARs. No, they knew. They knew. They didn't know what it would look like, but they knew, right? They went from, black powder muskets to rifling. Like, they saw the writing on the wall was, it wasn't about the Constitution doesn't allow us to do anything. Mm-hmm. That's the beautiful thing about our Constitution, is we don't have a set of rules that says you're allowed to do this. Mm-hmm. The Constitution says these are your rights And this document protects your rights from a tyrannical government, right? And like the government cannot take these inalienable rights away from you, right? And that's all I want in this world with everything, right? I'm not going to get political, although some people might say this is. I just want freedom. That's it.
Yeah.
I just want freedom, right? Like you want to own guns? Great, own guns. You don't. Yeah. You want to get married? Get married. You don't. You want to be gay, right? That's how you are. You want to get married to your partner? That's great, right? Get married to your partner, right? Like whatever it is, the answer is always freedom. Right? You want to wear a mask? Great, wear a mask. You don't. You want to get the vaccine? Get it. You don't. Right? Yeah. Like you know, and it's even on controversial subjects like masks and vaccines, but abortions, like you want to get abortion? Go ahead. Right? Like you can get into morality, you can get into a whole bunch of stuff. They're not for me. I'm not a woman, but they're also not for me. Right? But that's your choice. And you know, that's the thing is when freedom comes into play, you don't get to choose. This isn't you get to choose what freedoms you get. That's not how freedom works. And this is the thing I think people don't understand is just because you don't like it doesn't mean others shouldn't have it or shouldn't have access to it or shouldn't be allowed to get it, right? Like,
yeah, why is your preference the one or opinion or your feeling about it the ultimate one for everybody? Just imagine if we did that. I mean, we are doing that. Like that's
we're trying to,
but like just imagine that. Like that's why we have like we're a diverse population, and that those diverse opinions and perceptions and standpoints and experiences is what allows us also to, you know, as long as we keep it open and we, well, this is where I was like, oh, I'm a conspiracy theorist now. But I think that's that divisiveness that's been created is a very sneaky way of distracting us from, you know, the corruption of politics.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if we allowed everyone to be just as they are, we'd start to see what was going on up top. But that's exactly why the Constitution, right? We have our rights because I'm reading a book right now. I'm just very new into it. It's called The Fourth Turning. And there's according to this book, I mean, we know things are cyclical, right? Like that is, there's cycles in nature. And so this book is stating how there's cycles, kind of different periods that we go through. And I think right now we're in a crisis, which means we're going to have a pretty massive war coming up. Like a revolutionary war status, not World War. Yeah. It's going to be pretty big. Whether that's internally just within the United States or with another country. And it cycles through the different turnings and what happens in each of them. And actually the generational characteristics based on which turning you're born in. And how that molds your kind of like perspective. But, and it goes back, it goes back multiple, you know, I can't remember what they would be, like centuries essentially. But that's where, like what you said, when you said our founding fathers, we should adjust it because there were no AR-15s. They knew the nature of societies. And so it doesn't matter the mechanism that you're using. Soon we're going to be in biowarfare for everyone, potentially. What's going to stop someone from having something, you know, some type of biowarfare powder in their pocket, you know, or machine-based, like,
Like COVID?
Yeah, no, I know. Exactly.
Like COVID?
Something that's been genetically
Did
modified.
I say COVID? I don't know if I mentioned
Yeah.
COVID.
Did I? Something that was made in a lab. Interesting.
Why would they ever want to do that?
I don't
Bre?
know. You know, there's no agenda. No.
No.
But as long as we're fighting each other, we're not fighting the people who are actually pretty evil up there, who are taking all of our money and exempt from the laws. Funny. Who might that be? Our politicians? Alan.
Not Gavin Newsom.
Oh, God.
I mean.
Wear your mask. I don't have to at my
me,
birthday
I don't
party.
have to. I can go to French Laundry.
Yeah.
And eat with a group of people.
Wait, but your kids, they can't go to school in person. No. Right. Your kids can't go to school.
No, but my kids will.
But my kids will. Oh, but it's totally okay for them too. Wait, Alan, is insider trading illegal?
Well, for you.
Oh, but not for you
because
you.
No.
You, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Right. So as long as we're fighting each other. As long as we see the enemy as someone else at our level, we won't fight them. Mm-hmm. And they can continue to rob us, essentially. Mm-hmm. And they want to keep us dependent. Because as long as we're dependent on them, so welfare, right? Taking our checks, our stimulus checks, not going back to work. And so small businesses are crashing because they can't employ people because they can't afford to compete with the $600 a week.
Because the government is literally printing money.
So then small businesses crash or they get bought out by big businesses. And now all of a sudden we have very few elite controlling everything.
Yeah.
What?
It's really funny.
I'm a conspiracy, but that's the thing is no, it's pretty clear. But I'm just busy hating you because you disagree with me.
Yeah. Two things to that. One, I've had this conversation with a friend, and all that person keeps coming back to is, so you're saying this is all just made up, this COVID shit, and that's where I start just you know what, I'm done conversing with you. No, I never said this was just made up, right? COVID exists, it's real.
Yeah.
It was made in a lab.
Yes.
We know that, right? And when our last president said that and was shot down, and then all of a sudden, they now, no one's come to acknowledge that, right? We know that it was made in a lab. So it's not that it doesn't exist. It exists. And we will never know if it was truly weaponized, right? I don't think it was, me personally, right? I don't think it was weaponized. I think it fucking got out on accident.
Well, the audits said they were poorly managed for what they were handling. So I don't. Right. I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it just got out, and now we're in the fucking situation we're in. And it sucks. So I don't think that it was used as I don't think it was weaponized. I think it is a weapon, but I don't think in this case it was weaponized. But again, I don't think that all this is fake, but I also don't, right? It goes back to everything that you were saying, is that the people in power are definitely going to take advantage of this, and they can create a system where rules for thee, not for me, right? And that's exactly what they've done, and we've seen it, over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I think people like you and I are just right? I'm going to start questioning things. And then there was a second point I wanted to make. I don't know if I'm going to remember. You were talking about government. I don't remember my second point anyway, but yeah, we're literally just, here, and we're letting, these politicians do whatever they want to do because we're scared of, we're made to be scared of, something that we should respect. Same thing as a firearm, right? We should respect it, but we shouldn't be made as afraid. And again, we're being pitted against each other. And that sucks. Oh, that was the second point I was going to make. And right, like no matter where you stand, like I've said this in social media posts. I've said this on this episode, on episodes before. Like no matter where you stand, I love you. Like I do. And like that's what's really cool is I was in the military. I was in the army, and we signed, right? Like we signed on that paper to protect our freedoms. And again, I don't get to choose, right? Freedom. That's it. I just get to protect your freedom. You have the people of, what is it? What fucking crazy church is that in like Kansas and shit?
Seventh-day.
I forget the name. What?
I don't know.
There's a church that they go and they protest veteran funerals and they hold up like they have very anti-gay language, anti-veteran language. Like they say some really derogatory things at veteran funerals and Westboro Baptist. I think that's it. Westboro Baptist Church. I think that's it. And I fought, and like I didn't fight. I wasn't in combat, but like I joined the military to protect their freedoms. Do I agree with them? Fuck no. Like, do I want them shitting on my brothers in arms and sisters in arms like that? Fuck no. But that's what freedom is. Freedom is just that, like your ability to free speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, right? Do what you want. That is why our country, right? Like you bring up the chance of a revolutionary war, and I hope not. I hope we don't see that in our timeline, in our lifetime, because it would look very scary and very different because a few reasons, right? There's no Mason-Dixon line, right? If we look back at the Civil War, right, there isn't a Mason-Dixon line anymore, right? It's not the North versus the South. It's not if you're south of this line, you're on the Southern people, right? Like you're on the Southern team. If you're north of this line, you're on the Northern team, and now we're just going to fight each other, right? Like that's not what a revolutionary war would look like here, and so I hope that we never see anything like that. And also, we are the longest standing democracy in the world, right? We are the longest standing country that hasn't had a change in our government system, right, since 1776. That tells you something, right? That tells you that our founding fathers got it right, right? We didn't get everything right, and we continue to correct and make amends and try to right things that we did wrong. But we got it right. For us to last as long as we have, for there not to be a revolution, it's pretty wild when you really think about it, right? Like you have countries like Syria and Libya who go through new governments, like changing your underwear, right? Like, and here we are, and right. And here's the other thing: like you go to countries like Thailand, and I remember like going to Thailand, and it was like, don't say anything bad about their government because they'll throw you in jail, right? Like you say anything bad, you're caught saying anything bad about the government, you get tossed in jail. And here people go online with millions of views, millions of followers, talking about how terrible, right, our government is, and I mean,
our president got censored.
Right.
Who's in charge? Like, and I don't care. Like, I'm not going to speak to how my opinions about Trump, but my opinion is
we shouldn't be censored.
No.
Yeah.
And no
and
system is perfect. Like when you were saying, like, it's been around since 1776, it's like no government is perfect, but we want it the best possible, right? Like there's always going to be like small flaws in any system, right? It's trade-offs.
100%.
We've talked about that.
Yeah.
Like, and I think you bringing up these other areas of like is a perfect example of like, gosh, we got to not that we can't continue improving, but we got to stop bitching.
Yeah. You want my real opinion of why we're at where we're at?
Okay.
Is because we don't have fucking problems.
Yeah.
We don't have real problems.
Mm.
Right? You know, this is totally going to be an unpopular opinion. And because, right, people are going to reach out and hate mail me about this, right? Like, what are you talking about? I don't have real problems. Look, you waiting an extra 10 minutes for your Frappuccino in the Starbucks line isn't a fucking problem. Right? Like, you want to know what a real problem is? A real problem is getting your family drone striked by another country who thought you were a high value target and you weren't. That's fucking problems. I have a friend who grew up in Iran. Right? He is from Iran. He came here in middle school. And to this day, he's like, man, he's like, these people don't know what a problem is. He's like, when you're hearing bombs go off, missiles go off, you know, like, and they hate us. Like, they are taught in their schools. Like, he told me for years, they chanted death to America. Like, in their schools. Like, we don't have fucking problems. Sure, we have first world problems. Oh, my iPhone cracked. Right? Oh, yeah. Right? Like, oh, yeah, we've gone hungry. Oh, I can't find a job. Bullshit, you can't find a job. Unemployment is at a high because the government keeps printing money right now, whereas there's plenty of jobs out there.
There's plenty of I know plenty of business in town that can't even run a full business because they can't hire. There's no one to work.
Right. So, like, we don't have problems. And I don't care if I catch flack for saying that, because we don't. Like, I'm sitting here talking to you through fucking ether. Like, how the fuck is this? Like, I remember, right? Like, I'm going to date myself a bit here. You're sort of in this too, right? Like, there was a time when I had to run to a wall to pick up a phone that was connected to a line. And that was the only way we could talk to each other. Never did I think we'd be sitting here on wireless mics with wireless headphones. You in Wyoming, me in Colorado. Like, you know, our problems are minuscule, and we make up shit. That's the issue, is because we don't have real problems, because we're not, right? Like, when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? That Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you didn't learn this in school, right? Like, that didn't go away, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs is still totally relevant, right? So your first need is safety, right? Food, water, shelter, right? So let's look at countries who don't have that. They don't even get to go up Maslow's little pyramid, right? That's a fucking problem. When you don't have food, water, shelter, right? You're not worried about the line at Starbucks. You're not worried about pronouns. You're not worried about anything that is going on other than what? Food, water, and shelter. And the higher up you go into Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and like, I learned, it's funny, I learned in school, I couldn't tell you what it is right now though. Do you remember what it is?
No.
Oh God. Do I have to look it up? I'm going to look it up.
But I will say, like, what you're saying about work, like, my mom was born in Budapest in Hungary, and escaped communism when they escaped when she was 9 and came to the U.S. They found a sponsored family to come to the U.S. legally when she was like 10 and a half. And the same thing. I mean, they went to go protest the 1956 revolution. They went down to protest the communists because it was like what people don't understand is like in order to participate in society, you had to say you're communist. So people who weren't communists said they were because that allowed them to go to school, to have jobs, to live where they were living. And
I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah.
I want you to keep talking, but I want to come back to this with a very valid point. So keep going though.
And yeah, and so they went to go protest, and just soldiers were up on the rooftops, just lit up fire, like just shot the crowd, and they took over the entire city, the entire country, but the entire city. It's like same thing that your friend would experience. I mean, they had tankers going down the streets, and their only choice was to escape, to leave.
Yeah.
And like that's coming back, like even just coming back to like ownership of firearms. Like I'm gonna say it now, even though I wasn't before, but what do they want to do? They want to disarm, like this gets a lot of flack,
Disarm the citizens.
Yes, exactly. Right?
Number one rule, disarm the citizens, and you don't have to worry about them fighting back.
Exactly.
It's not, I don't know why it gets flack, right? Like you take guns away, and we're seeing it in Australia.
Well, Afghanistan, look what happened the second that.
Right. Taliban took over, right? They don't have any guns.
The people don't have guns.
Right. You can do whatever you want to do at that point.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I want to come back to your point that you made. But first, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is, right? So psychological needs, which is air, water, food, shelter, right? Sleep, right? That's the base, right?
Those are psychological?
Physiological.
Okay. I was like,
physiological. Yep. Sorry.
I was like, I don't think that.
Good catch.
I can maybe fast, but I think. Just kidding.
Yeah. So your physiological needs,
right?
Like I said, your air, water, food, shelter, right? You have to have that. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, right, you don't go up the pyramid.
Yeah.
Right. That's the point. That's why it's a pyramid, right? You can't. Mm-hmm. Right. If you don't have those things, you don't live.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's safety needs, which is personal security, employment, resources, like your health, right? Like it's all those things, being able to take care of your family, keeping everything, right, safe. Love and belonging is next. So that friendship, intimacy, family, that sense of connection that we talk about all the time, right? So you're not going to be worried about connection if you don't have food.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I need to feed us. That's what I need to do. And it doesn't matter what our connection is. Like, I just need to go get food. Right. Then esteem, which is respect, self-esteem, status, recognition, strength, freedom. Right. So here's where we lie, right? We lie in this esteem category. And then there's self-actualization, which is the desire to become the most that you can be. And I'd say you like bounce between self-actualization and esteem. But I'd say, for us being the USA, I'd say we're definitely, right, we don't worry about all those things at the base. Right? We don't worry about where we're getting our water. We're not worrying about carrying a bucket on our head, walking 3 miles to go get clean water, and carrying it back to our hut. And there are people in this world that are. So, to your point about acting like a communist, and so I was raised Jewish, and throughout life, I was told, don't let anyone know you're a Jew. And that comes from World War II, right? Well, I mean, it probably stems from long before that, because Jews have always been persecuted since the beginning of time. Jews have been persecuted. However, right, like you look at World War II as a perfect example, and you had Germany invading countries like Poland and trying to rid the world of Jews, and the response was, very much like what you're saying is, oh, don't, be a communist, right? And in this case, it's don't be a Jew, which means be a German, be a Pole, right? Like, be whatever it is, that as long as you're not Jewish. And there were recently anti-Semitic like riots and stuff, like in Florida and New York, with all the stuff with Palestine and Israel going on. And I love my mother to death. This is nothing against my mother, but again, it's just the way she was raised. But, like when all that was happening, she's like, make sure no one knows you guys are Jews. And fuck that. Like, fuck that. Hell fucking no. Like, you will never, like, first off, let me explain, like, being a Jew, like, isn't, like, who I am. Like, I'm not, like, King Jew, right? Like, over here, where I'm, like, whatever it is, whatever it is, whatever you are, be that shit fucking loud and proud, right? And fuck whoever is against that, because, right, like, there's strength in numbers. And look what happened to 6 million Jews. Right? Because they decided to, like, hide. We're 6 million fucking Jews. Like, why didn't they band together? Well, they didn't have fucking guns. That was the problem. Right? But they were like, oh, let's just stop this. And, oh, it's everyone for themselves. Whereas if they just came together, like, there is so much power in that. And there is so much power, right? Like, we see it in a lot that we do. Like, no, be who the fuck you are going to be, right? Be it a Jew, be it gay, be it black, white, brown, like, it doesn't matter, right? Like, you be you proudly. And in the, and nothing against your mother, right? I want to make sure I'm not disrespecting your mother, right? Like, in the sense of what she was dealing with, like, she had to act that part, right? Like, of, I have to be this communist. I don't know if she was there or not, but, like, people had to act like this communist, right, to get out of the situation. But the point is
no, to have human rights. That's what it was.
To have human rights, to go to work.
So what's happening right now with vaccine mandates?
Yeah.
How is that not?
They're trying.
You can't go to school if you're not vaccinated. You can't. You can't go to work if you're not vaccinated. You can't go to the grocery store. You can't get food for your family if you're not vaccinated.
Right.
Come on, guys. Like, wake up, man.
Yeah. It's crazy. And, like, we should all be standing by each other and not against each other. And we should all be for our freedom.
Just the basic, the first level of Maslow's.
Yeah.
Are we really willing to sacrifice the first level?
Yeah. And that's the thing, is you can't, right? Like, how did that, right? People say, how did that happen to the Jews? And it's simple. It's actually really easy how it happened to the Jews. It happened over time. It wasn't overnight. Like, it wasn't like, yep, Jews are bad, done, right? Like, round them all up, kill them all. Right? When you read the history of the Germany and the Third Reich, and it was a process, right? It took time to kill 6 million Jews. And sadly, what it wasn't Nazis, right? Like, everyone's like, Nazi this, communism, right? Like, look, I'm not bringing up Nazi, right? Like, it was our fellow people. It was people who believed they didn't have a choice. It was people who believed they didn't have power. It was Jews turning in other Jews. It was Poles turning in Jews. It was people who believed, for some reason, that they didn't have the power. And the point is that you don't let it get to that. That's the point, is it's not how do you, escape that, right? That shouldn't be the question. It's you don't let it get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you're trying to escape it, you've gone too far already.
Mm-hmm.
And we shouldn't let it get to that. And I hope we don't let it get to that. And we the people, that's a familiar saying.
Mm-hmm.
We the people, right? It's written that way for a reason,
mm-hmm.
right? Because we do have the power, and we do have a choice, and we have the ability to stand up for the things that, the freedoms that we believe we deserve, and whether we want them or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key. Is I would have joined the army all over again,
mm-hmm.
to provide the necessary, whatever necessary for everyone, the freedom to do whatever the fuck they want to do, whether I agree with you or not.
As long as you're not harming someone else.
Sure. However,
how does that
goes down? That goes down a really tricky rabbit hole.
I know, because it's if you're being, I know, right? Mm-hmm.
And when you start preaching to me about doing it for the greater good, that's when you also lose me in a conversation.
Yeah.
Because that's what the Germans, again, I was raised Jewish. Like,
yeah,
I was always taught to be fearful of being a Jew.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, what was for the greater good was to kill all the fucking Jews.
Mm-hmm.
That was for the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you didn't know that, like, if you're listening to this and you didn't know why they killed the Jews, it was for the greater good of the world.
Mm-hmm.
was to exterminate every Jew on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I didn't say greater good. I didn't say it.
I know you didn't. I know you didn't. But for the greater good is your argument? Go fuck yourself. Like, sorry. I don't give a fuck about your argument anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for the greater good. Get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm.
For the greater good. For the greater good. How about, I won't even get into it. I'll take a breath there.
Yeah.
For the greater good is a terrible fucking argument. Period.
Well, and I think what needs to happen is I've always believed on a lot of different aspects, like it needs to come from the, like, top down is typically not going to be from the greater good, right?
Mm-hmm. No, because that's for the good of the top.
The good of the top, right? And that's
right.
Like when I think about, again, like communism, and, you know, Hitler, why people started to act the way they did, like you said, turning Jews in, and whether they agreed with it or not, ended up siding on the side of the like essentially the government, right? Mm-hmm. Is because they were afraid to be against them. And so what are we doing right now? We're creating, we're just in a lot of like fear-based mentality. And with the way that we have access to information because of media, because of social media, it's continuing to, again, they know as long as we are in this fear-based mentality that we believe the government, it can protect us. And so then we side with the government and we'll out people who aren't siding with the government. Mm-hmm. And that's how that happened. That's how things escalate because we think they have our best interest.
Right. And they'll protect us. You said that, right? Like, not only our best interest, but you think that they'll protect us. And I said this already, no one is coming to save you. Period. And when you get really good with that, you understand the importance of the Second Amendment, understand the importance of taking care of you, your family, right? It's, right? Like, you don't call the police when everything's going great. And right, our government, it's not that and I think I've said this before, and like you and I both believe, right? Like, our goal is to see the best in everyone. And I truly believe that people have good intentions. It's not malicious, right? None of this is malicious, I don't believe. There are people that are malicious, but I don't believe this is malicious in the sense of right? Like, they want us to be against each other, right? They do want us to be against each other because now they've, created a level of power in themselves that they don't want to give up, because power, right? Like, just go watch the movie The Lord of the Rings when you want a good analogy for power. But right, like it's not that anyone ever had ill intent, but then it's a snowball and it gets to the point where it is harming society.
Yeah. And I think I want to make it clear too, like, I might not, like, I talk a lot of crap, obviously, on politicians, but I never say F this politician, or I want this politician to die. And I think we need to remove, like, I cannot stand that.
Yep.
Like, I don't, just because I think what they're doing is corrupt.
Yep.
I'm never going to wish ill fate on them. I will never put that out into the universe.
Right.
And words are everything, and
if I had the opportunity to meet any president, I would be so excited. Like, whether I voted for him or not, like, you get to meet the leader of the free world. And like, that's cool. Right? Like, if I got a picture, like, I would put that in a frame, I'd display that shit. Right? Whether I voted for you, whether I agree with your policies, whether I think you're the worst president ever, the best president ever, like that, like, that's what our country was founded on, is your ability to feel that way. And not that, like, oh, I want this person dead because I disagree with them.
Yeah. How crazy is that?
That is the most absurd thing ever. I never got that. Like, yeah, man. Howard, did you see the thing about Howard Stern that just came out?
No.
I think we have a delay.
Oh no,
Wi-Fi.
I haven't seen it.
Howard Stern said that he wished all anti-vaxxers like Joe Rogan would die.
What?
Yeah. And right, like, Howard Stern's a Jew too. Like that's the other thing. Like, when I see other Jews, like our history, man. Like, that's crazy. And even, like, say, like, hearing that, it angers me, but it's also like, man, like, a guy who has all the money in the world, right? One of the most influential people in the world, and here he is wishing death upon people who he disagrees with.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if he's doing it for listeners, because that's definitely his MO. But, like, man, he needs some love. Like, that's all I think. Like, when I saw that, I was like, man, give that guy a hug. Like, it's just sad. It really is that, like, we've come to this point in our humanness that if you don't agree with me, like, I want you dead. Yikes.
Yikes, that's right.
Fuck.
Oh, yep. And that's, I think, that's why I'm in the profession that I'm in, is because so much of what we do is treating the symptoms. Right. And I do, like, so I said, made the comment, as long as you're not harming someone, you don't even have to worry about that. I think the work that we do, right, is working at the root, because if we really acted from that place of love, then there wouldn't be concern about people owning firearms. Right? Because we know they wouldn't be they wouldn't be used for ill intent. People who want to act with ill intent will find the ways to do it, regardless if it's a knife, if it's a bomb they made in their garage, if it's a firearm they purchased legally. It does not matter. And so, yeah, maybe there's some areas that you kind of have to address symptoms, but I think the more that we work on the root of it all, of coming from this place of love, the less we'd have to be doing all this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we've said so many keywords in this episode that the NSA is going to be tracking every fucking thing that we do. You just said like make a bomb, like a homemade bomb. I'm like, oh god, like there's another thing. Like they are hearing everything that they want to hear in this episode.
Yep.
That's funny.
Oh gosh.
Right, you want right, like we can end, right? Like I think we're at our time, but I'll say this, right? Like you want to look at, right? Like people, it's really funny. I find it how funny it has become, like how quickly many people have turned into trust our government. Mm-hmm. When you look at very recent examples, the NSA, right? Like, do we know, right? Do most people, do the laymen know why the NSA was created, right? And it was created based off of the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act was created in 2001 after 9/11, right? And what the Patriot Act did was what? Give the government the ability to listen to any fucking thing they wanted based on the premise of protecting us for the greater good. Right? Like, and you know, like we have people like, what's the fucking guy's name?
Snowden.
Snowden, yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Like Edward Snowden, right? This guy, he was a government employee. Like if you haven't watched the movie, watch the movie. If you haven't listened to his episode on Rogan, listen to his episode on Rogan. It's really hard to listen to because he's very like mundane but like the info is like really good. The movie was great too. But this is recent, people. Like this isn't 50 years ago. This isn't 100. This is our lifetime that the government was like, oh, we're going to put this in place for the greater good. And we're going to fucking totally take advantage of it. And we're going to listen to everything everyone's saying. And we're going to fucking make decisions based on that. And people like Edward Snowden, who were a government employee, started seeing this and was like, wait, I'm a government employee because I want freedom, right? That goes back to my point. Like you can't choose, right? Like you just get freedom. And then everything below that is just freedom. And when you don't have freedom, right, you get what we get when you have the government listening into everything. And Snowden talks about this, and he started compiling all sorts of shit on the U.S. government, and finally he had enough, and he found someone to help him expose it, and he left the country, and then he exposed it, and we made him out to be an enemy, and he's not, right? Like he did the thing that I would hope anyone and everyone should do, right? Like when you realize that your government is acting in a tyrannical fashion, I hope that you would do the same thing. And that's all we want, right? Like we want the ability for everyone to be free. And yeah, with that, I don't know if you have any final words to say.
That just could open so many.
Yeah.
So I could go so many directions. Just, the like button from Facebook on everything. Mm-hmm. They're not just using it for advertisements.
Right.
They're tracking everything.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, and the step two, again,
data.
That's where that censorship, that's where I think it gets concerning. It's, like you said, it's not too long ago, and look at how quickly things change. Mm-hmm. So just know your rights, protect yourself, make your own choices, and don't hate people because they think differently than you.
And I didn't wear this shirt knowing this is what we were going to talk about. Right? Like for those that aren't watching on YouTube, I'm wearing a shirt. It has the 50 stars of the American flag on it. It has an AR-15, and it says, "I will not comply." Mm-hmm. And that's my advice. Don't fucking comply. Like, you're a free person. You're a free man. You're a free woman. Don't fucking comply. Like, you have the power. You don't not have the power. Mm-hmm. I'll say that. Mm-hmm. All right. Such a crazy episode.
Yes.
I'm gonna journal prompt us.
Yes.
And then you're gonna end with a lovely breath to calm us all down.
Yes. Sounds great.
So that's the thing. So all right. So journal prompt. Grab your journals. Write about everything that we've talked about. Whether you disagree or not, I hope you disagree. And if you disagree, I hope you reach out. Mm-hmm. I do. I want to hear from you. I love difference of opinions. I have friends from all walks of life. And I truly mean that. And if my friends, right, if they decide to walk away because of a difference of opinion, like, again, you need more love. And, yeah, so just write about this episode. Reach out. If you agree, reach out. If you don't know where you stand, write about that, right? If you agree, write about that. If you disagree, write about that. If you're like, I don't know what, like, I'm just working my 9 to 5, trying to provide the bottom base of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and what the fuck is this, right? Like, write about that. And reach out. Like, we're not, like, we are always willing to have a conversation, and I know Bre's the same way, and I know I've had people reach out to me and share their difference of opinion, and I'm always willing to be respectful, as long as I get respect in return. And but let's have the conversation. Let's not have the conversation. And write about, like, maybe why you're scared of the Second Amendment, or why you're scared of guns, where that stems from. And yeah, just anything else that might come to mind. I don't know if you have anything to add to the journal prompt, but feel free to jump in. Otherwise, lead us through our breathing to end this episode.
Yeah, maybe I would say just write what does freedom mean to you? Yeah,
that's good.
I don't know. All right. Whew. Let's close up the eyes, or again, depending where you are, you can just soften the gaze so that you can allow the awareness to move into your body and breath. And I'll invite you to place one palm on your heart center and then the other palm on top of that hand. And begin to slow down your exhales. So taking a natural breath in. And if you can, as you exhale through the nostrils, just slowing it down. Notice if you can feel your heartbeat. Maybe you feel it in your chest, or maybe you're feeling it in your hands or somewhere else. And if you can't, that's okay. Then expand your awareness to just have a sense of your entire body and how it feels. And then coming back to your breath. Continue to lengthen the exhale, but without strain or struggle. And as your exhale naturally terminates, notice that pause before you inhale. So exhaling, feeling it dissipate into that very momentary pause. And now notice in that pause where your exhale naturally terminates. Notice the sense of your whole body or your heart. Notice if it feels different than when you're breathing. Or maybe it feels different as you just bring some awareness to it. Or maybe nothing changes, and just being with that. And then releasing your palms from your heart. And returning to your natural breath. And then noticing those brief pauses, those brief moments between each breath. Knowing that it's always there. That you can always return there. And then when you feel ready, slowly fluttering your eyes open.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was wonderful chatting with you.
Yeah, always. Got some good stuff today.
Absolutely. All right, we'll chat soon.
Sounds good.
All right.
Bye. If you want to follow us and our adventures, you can find both of us on Instagram. I'm at Bre Allison. That's BreAllison.
And I am at The Life of Alan Tatone, underscores between each word. To check out our offerings, yoga, one-on-one trainings, workshops, retreats, and a recorded library, you can find the info on our website, thehunterandthehippie.com.
If you have questions for the podcast, about the podcast, feedback, suggestions, or just want to say hi, or find ways to work with us, our email is thehunterandthehippie@gmail.com. And don't worry, all of this will be in our show notes.
Thanks for tuning in
Hopefully you weren't tuned out.
to the Hunter and the Hippie podcast.